Meg, you said you let the beagles go today. I wish that my 14-year-old twin boys who are home today, you might hear them in the background. They could be walking the beagles. Wouldn't that be
Oh, yes, we could join them together. The twins with the twins, although mine are just siblings, not
so that's
twins.
the background noise? It's my 14-year-olds.
But all right. Yeah, there's good thing. I do like the little view into people's world. That's been a fun part of this. But definitely the noisy dogs are exhausting for dog owners. What do you think? Are we ready to start, or we're waiting? We're around 20. Let's give a few more minutes for folks to join in. And then I'll get started so that we have plenty of time for questions at the end. I am hearing one little repetitive click. Does anyone hear that? Might just be my system. All right. Ready to go? So I want to welcome all of you for taking time to join us here today. My name is Megan Peak, and I am the Director of Community Relations and Health Promotion at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Vermont. I'm honored to welcome you to our third symposium focused on helping Vermont youth thrive. This symposium is brought to you by Blue Cross and Blue Shield's Caring for Children Foundation. And today's discussion is presented in partnership with Vermont Feed, and will focus on benefits of local and sustainable food systems on promoting the emotional and physical health of youth. So before starting, I'll do a couple tips about Zoom. So all participants have been muted upon entry, and we ask that you stay muted throughout the presentation. We want to hear your questions and comments though, so please use the chat. You can find the chat box either by hovering at the bottom of your screen to open it, or it will be open on the right-hand side of your screen. The best viewing option for today is to use speaker view, which you can access at the top right-hand side of your screen. So to tell you a bit more about today's symposium, I'd like to introduce Catherine Hamilton. Catherine is the Vice President of Consumer Services and Planning at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Vermont, and serves as President for the Caring for Children Foundation. She is a wellness leader here at Blue Cross and Blue Shield. We're so lucky to have her, and in the community. And she came up with this series as a way to extend our organization's commitment to lifelong well-being for all Vermonters. So welcome, Catherine.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's such an honor to be able to introduce this series. It's the third in our series, and it's also exciting to feel like we've made some progress since when we, in terms of the pandemic, since when we first had our first series back in December of 2020. So it's in that spirit of growth that I introduce the series today. If you could transition to the next slide. Jess Moore, I want to thank you for your work on this series, Megan Peak, Rich Lewis, and Emily Crosby, for helping us to shine the spotlight on programs that are really making a difference and that are inspiring us. And so that's what today is about, to hear from a program that really inspires us. Our work today is also part of a larger initiative at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Vermont, led by Megan Peak, an overall component of some community investments and giving that we do. We also support statewide health and wellness and our community advisory boards. We have some members of our community advisory boards here today. We work in partnership with other stakeholders. And we have for many years been engaged in a local food program and early supporters of Vermont Feed. We provide grants to schools for cooking carts and institutes and learning about food. We've also been longtime supporters of the Junior Iron Chef, and Vermont Feed has set the bar for creating this incredible movement, and their work is now being replicated across the United States. We'd like to see that grow, and this is very exciting to have this presentation today. It's also an honor to introduce Betsy Rosenbluth, who's here with us. Next slide, please, and we'll show Betsy's bio. She's the director of Vermont Feed, a nationally recognized farm-to-school program of the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont and Shelburne Farms. Such a treasure of a leader and a place, and also working very closely with Jed Norris, who is an early education program coordinator at Shelburne Farms, working with children from preschool through middle and high school, and with educators who are looking to connect their classroom curriculum to the natural and agricultural world. And just in closing, I hope that as we emerge from the pandemic, it's my hope that we will focus more on the things that are upstream in health, such as food, and healthy food and healthy choices. So with that, I'll hand it off to Betsy.
Great, thank you, Catherine. You're going to get a real feel for Farm to School and what it looks like on the ground in early childhood programs, in Guilford Central School, and with some of the students from Harwood Union High School. So with us as well, we have Jeswin Anthony and Jasper Kaliba, who are students at the high school, and Sarah, I didn't ask how to pronounce your name, Rousseau, who's the Guilford Central School Farm to School coordinator. So, but we thought, even though we're on Zoom, that we would start with a little activity with all of you. So I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Jed Norris, to get us started.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me. I apologize. Sometimes when my mic is right here, I get really loud, so I do apologize for that. I will try, and because I have earbuds in too, so I've been accused by my roommates that I can't hear how loud I am all the time. But we're going to, so Betsy, do you want to do screen share? I don't think I have, oh, I can do it actually. I can take care of it, Betsy. So for me, my work, pre-COVID was about, I would say 80% in-person direct work with kids around connecting them to, spaces in the forest, spaces in the garden, visiting the dairy, visiting the, kind of looking at both of our natural and our agricultural ecosystems. And then I would also work directly with teachers who are working with kids as well in professional development, and really kind of focusing on how to bring that work into their classroom and not make it feel like it's an add-on, but to make it feel like it's a beneficial part of their program that they can grow and strengthen, and that it's all encompassing for kids, and it crosses all sorts of kind of curricular goals and whatnot. So, but for me, I always feel like we have to start because food is such a personal, everybody has their own kind of personal feelings about food, that we often have to start with kind of our own food memory. And I feel like it kind of helps, kind of flattens, where people are coming from a little bit. And it gives us something kind of connect with, because most everybody's got some sort of a memory with food. So we've got this little activity. And my colleague Courtney put together these slides, and I think she did a really good job. So I'm hoping if people can kind of give me a thumbs up that they have a piece of paper and a writing instrument, I will go on to the next instructions. So you're going to want to fold it halfway in and then fold those halves back out like so. And it's not an origami competition, so it's okay if it's more ish than exact. And then I can see Jessica, Megan, Betsy, and Sarah. So just give me a thumbs up when you're at the bottom picture. Cool. So now you should have something like the top. And the next thing, you're going to draw a face. It could be you or it could be a generic face on top of the folds. So don't unfold it and draw the face yet. And Megan, I'm using you as my gauge on how long to pause for.
Okay, I drew my face.
Great. You don't even have to show it right now. You can just keep it right to yourself.
That's probably good.
Okay, so what you're going to do is kind of pull open the top part, and then you can kind of connect the lines. So your head's going to grow bigger, and then you can kind of connect your tongue to your mouth. Well, your lips, I guess, and your mouth is going to get bigger. And then in the mouth area, I want you to think about and write a food item or that has a strong memory for you. And then in the top, up in your head area, I want you to write a couple words or a sentence about that memory. And then we'll probably do a little bit of sharing, but I'm not going to put any pressure on anybody to share. I guess we can use the chat as well. So just take a minute and think back. It could be something that happened last week. It could be something that happened, a long, long, long time ago. Good, Megan?
Yep, I'm good.
All right. So I'm going to stop my share real quick so I can see more faces. And then if people would like to throw into the chat, or maybe actually if people are okay with this, I don't know if we'll be able to see it, but try holding there you go, Betsy. You got your curly hair. Okay, and then in the chat, if you can write down what was your item, and then what was kind of your memory about it. And Catherine, it's up to you. If people want to unmute, I'm okay with it, but I know that you said, okay, so if people would like to just share it verbally as well, feel free to unmute yourself. Oh, nice. Watermelon, nice. Nice. So I'm hoping that people are reading these as they're coming in. Wow, Jasper, that is a cool story I would like to hear about at some point.
Oh.
Wow, Catherine. Making grapefruit out of wheat germ and honey. That's a new one.
The wheat germ, she would put wheat germ on the top of the grapefruit and honey and cook it in the oven.
Gotcha.
Oh.
That makes more sense. I was like, whoa, that is some magic. I was like, is it like a taste like grapefruit thing or?
I've never heard of putting it in the oven. That's fascinating.
Oh, Jacqueline, that is too funny that you're a vegetarian, but the turkey dinner, the sense, the family, and the laughter, that is great. So many of these have come up. Do people see kind of a pattern?
A lot of it's from very young age, it seems.
Yeah, so a lot of people, a lot of memories from a long time ago. There's usually, and just like in this one, there's a lot of connections with relationships. So I think, to me, I mean, I love food. I literally could talk about food all day long. But and I'm also a huge extrovert. So to me, I think that food to me is like really a way to connect with people and kind of build relationships. So, whether I'm in a classroom and we're having snack, to me, I always call snack as like a chat and chew. So we're going to sit and we're going to talk about the food that we're eating, but we're also going to talk about everything else, that whatever comes up, and we're going to be having our snack and whatnot. And so I think those moments, those are those kind of powerful, ordinary moments that kind of can stick with you. And whenever I'm working with a group of educators and we do an exercise like this, I always like to remind them, like, you never know what's going to stick. So you don't know if, like, making that, maybe you've made 1,000 batches of applesauce, but that for some reason, that connection that that child had that day, they might be thinking about this 20 or 30 years later in their life. And not to like put a lot of pressure on them, but just to remind them about how important kind of food can be, just to forming the relationship. And when you have the relationship, it makes trying new foods easier. It makes being a part of the food experience more welcoming and more gratifying. So thank you everybody for sharing those memories. And I'm going to jump back in to do a quick, another screen share. And so the next thing I wanted to kind of move on to is a little bit of like when I'm working with really young kids, um, around kind of food, and we're visiting a garden space. To me, I often think there's a lot of stigma and pressures that come in when we think about something as food. And when we visit a garden space, I actually like to try and strip away that feeling of like we're going there to visit all these healthy foods. And I'm all for the healthy foods, but I don't think that's always a great sales pitch, especially when we're going to try something. And so I've seen this happen so many times where kids will eat kale right off the stalk. And so then we'll pull a bunch of it and then we'll take it down and everybody will get involved in making kale chips, and then we'll bake it and we'll put it out. And as soon as it like hits the table setting and the plates and everything, it's like, oh, the stigma of like healthy food, and they don't need it as much. So it's kind of this funny connection around plants in our food. And I often like to bring up to educators around thinking around, when we go see flowers, we treat flower plants differently than we treat kind of vegetable plants. And I want us to kind of get back to, thinking about the plant, in a flower plant kind of way. So this is just a really quick image of something that's called the color search. It's a really nice way to visit a garden and to like really slow kids down a little bit and to find those details. And these color search, swatches, I mean, you can pick them up at any local paint store or hardware store that has paint. And it's really easy. You can use it in the forest. But, for here, and we'll kind of do it throughout the season so we can kind of see those seasonal changes. And as things are kind of coming out of season, and then other things are kind of coming into season. So when we're talking about this stuff, we're not necessarily talking about like, oh, that tomato and that kale and the raspberries, like we might be talking about them, but we're more identifying them as maybe like the tomatoes are like the seeds of the tomato plant, and the kale is like the leaves, and the borage is on the bottom. It's the bottom one on the purple. Really cool little flower to eat. We'll inspect that flower. We'll watch it. We'll see the bees working on it. And then, oh, by the way, you could taste it if you want to. And ironically enough, it actually tastes like cucumber, which is kind of fun. And then another thing, when we're engaging with food, we were making applesauce. And so kids were, wondering like, how long can we make the string? I mean, I think anybody who's ever peeled apples has this, when you peel and you keep it all in one peel, it's kind of like when you're at a gas station and you get the perfect pump and you hit it right on there and you're like, yes, my day is going to be better. And so this is me on the left, and we had to do some measuring just to see how long are those apples peels. So they're roughly 1 me or 2 preschoolers. But again, this is a really great way to kind of engage, for kids. Yes, we're making applesauce and that's going to be the food that we're going to eat. And we probably could have used these peels and made some sort of like an apple chips. But to me, the engagement that they're getting, they're using their full body, and we've got the crowd right there watching us, is more of a meaningful thing to use 2 peels for. And then, as I said before, this is a group, we're sitting around this. I love this picture because it reminds me a little bit of like a sewing circle where everybody's kind of sitting around and working on their own independent project, but they're really all working together. And so the socialness of this experience is so rich. And we just went to the garden and we pulled a bunch of stuff and we brought it up and we brought up some spices and we made, you could see the vinegar, the kind of the pickling in the background, and everybody made their own pickles to take home and try out. Were they the most amazing pickles in the world? I'm not sure, but they're at least a beginning, a start. And so the other thing I wanted to point out in this picture was just having like the proper tools to get kids involved. So this is a wavy chopper. It's definitely one of my favorites to have. It's really handy for kids to use. You go over a few knife instructions, and then we practice, and then they're good to go. And then my other favorite tool that I like to use, this is a hand pull food processor. So I could take this out to the garden with a group of kids and we can make a salsa, just from kind of foraging in the garden space. And it just makes it really cool, eating in a different spot. I mean, I will say right now for myself, I've literally eaten with my family for like 16 months now straight. And so sometimes just sitting outside on the grass and eating there just changes it up enough. Just makes it like almost like ups the engagement just a little bit. And so I think, having these kind of tools on hand kind of help you bring, expand it, that, food always doesn't have to be just at the table. And then this is a child who we let the garden beans go a little bit longer. So then they started to dry out on the stalk late in the fall. And then we saved them. This picture was from like January, February. So just thinking about like those engaging jobs that kids can be a part of and how they can get their hands into things. And then, see that cycle from the end of last season and now we're seed saving and then we're getting these ready to plant the next season. And then I had to put this in because even though I know we're talking about food, this is a mud kitchen. And I just think that I talk about this all the time. I'm the biggest mud kitchen advocate, not the biggest, but I'm very big into it. And I think what we see here a lot and what I see a lot is that sometimes it needs a little bit of a head chef to kind of give kids that script around going to get different ingredients and bringing them together and combining them and processing them. And then thinking about, do you want to make like a soup or do you want to make something a little bit thicker? So then we're thinking about the science of how to turn our mud into kind of what we're hoping to make out of it. And then this is where we can also start to bring in that kind of that a little bit of that procurement experience of, Betsy might be really into being at the mud kitchen where, Joe might not really be into that tactile experience of getting his hands in muddy water. So Joe might be really good at foraging. So he might actually go and look for maple leaves to bring back. And then we've got a little bit of a commerce going. And then we need, we obviously need somebody to serve it to. So we're going to have to bring in some other kids to sit at the table. And then we're probably going to need a wait staff. So all of a sudden, a small interest into a mud kitchen now is turned into a full classroom experience where everybody's taking on these different roles. And to me, again, that holistic approach to kind of gathering, using your whole body and talking about food but not so much talking about it, but instead like really living it. And so for here, I always encourage this for teachers. If you're like the teacher that's like, I cannot change a recipe, like I have to follow it by the T, that's a little bit of a friction sometimes for cooking with kids, and that you've got to be a little more loose with it. And so I always encourage people, this is a great place to practice because you don't have to eat it. Preferably you wouldn't eat it, but you can do all the same language. You could bring out measuring cups. You could bring out all those experiences that then can be brought into that cooking experience when you do, make that banana bread or whatnot. So. Thank you all. I'd be happy to answer questions, but I think we have them at the end, right? Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Jed. And we can answer questions a little bit as we go. You can take a look at the chat box, and we thought we would show just a 3-minute video that expands on the amazing classrooms that Jed creates. This is a video that we did to illustrate farm to early childhood, and it's focused in Addison County. So I am going to do a little screen share here. There we go. And
what's happening? Farm to school can be a lot of things. It doesn't have to be just kids going out to the farm, because that's a really hard thing to make happen. The farm is actually bringing as much local produce and as many local people as you can back into your programs, building that community connection for our youngest kids.
Suzanne can run into me in the hallway and say, "Oh, I need another bag of carrots." Next time I come in, I'll bring one in.
I introduced the roving, and we read books. And the first thing we did was felting rocks, and just the kids taking off on my passion for wanting to do it, I think got them into really wanting to do it. The sensory piece is amazing, and 2-year-olds really love water and soap and rocks and collecting.
And we also did like beans and peas, which were bigger and easier for them. We have plenty of tomatoes down there. We have a lot of plants down there near the window.
Leaves, you see them?
Yep, right in there.
Can I put the carrot in?
Hang on. Yes, please.
It's becoming more embedded in our whole program.
Our participants are young families, young moms, young dads. So this is where everything's happening. So our toddlers planted a sunflower seed, and they come back and check the progress. And they just love it. And realizing that plants grow from seeds. So in our classroom, we explored all kinds of plants that have seeds.
Why can't we get the spinach?
You want to put your spinach in it? What'd you get, Bentley?
Red, my favorite.
Red, and what number's on red?
Strawberry.
It's gonna be grapey today.
Yeah, and it's gonna be sweet too. There's a salad stuck on the edge. Can I eat it?
I don't know, can you?
A smoothie on it. Can I try this?
Well, the impact has been awesome. I mean, the kids are just very excited about what they're doing. They're learning, and they're just so excited about it. They don't even realize what they are learning.
It tastes really good, Jim. Look, one is blooming right now.
It's beautiful.
Look at this one is blooming.
Remember that book we've been reading about composting, guys? This is what it is.
Look at that beautiful! Is it a worm?
Yeah.
Look, Jed, I found a worm.
Oh, yeah. It looks like a healthy one.
I found a worm.
all right. Well, that gives you a little bit of a taste and the excitement of the kids, certainly. I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes before I turn things over to Jasper and Jeswin about Farm to School. And, our goal, Vermont Feed was started back in 2000. And our goal is really helping students establish this lifelong positive relationship with food while supporting a more just food system. And we do it with serving healthy local food in schools, improving school nutrition and access to nourishing food, all the hands-on learning opportunities that you're seeing and can imagine maybe sparked by this discussion, and developing meaningful relationships between community partners, schools, and students. And you'll certainly hear more about that. And we like to describe it about supporting youth and connecting the dots between where their food comes from and then how their food choices are impacting their bodies and their environment and their communities. And I think probably even most important, just their role in creating change. So nationally with the Farm to School movement, it's good to remember almost 30 million students participate in the National School Lunch Program. So it's this amazing opportunity to feed hungry kids, but really it's an opportunity to shape how kids and adults will eat in the future. So Vermont Feed has a model of change that we call the 3 C's, right? Connecting classroom, cafeteria, and community. And it really takes connecting all 3 to build staying power and a culture of wellness in a school. So how do we create whole school change? That's our goal. That is just integrated and embedded in the early childhood program, in the K-12 classroom, in the whole school. And it could be, you're going to hear more examples today, but learning science on a cooking cart, or understanding history through indigenous foods. Or we like to see the cafeteria as the largest classroom. So that's where you might taste test new foods, or students might bring some of the produce that they grew in the garden to serve on the salad bar. And, we're proud I think it's something like 75% of schools now have salad bars, which is this great opportunity to have an array of new foods and to try things. And the community connections that are so essential might look like students donating their garden harvest. We saw this a lot during the pandemic, donating their garden harvest to families with recipes or to the local food shelf. Or in the past, they would host harvest dinners for seniors in their community or things like that. So it's really all these connections that are happening. And Vermont Feed does this through a lot of the training and professional development opportunities that you can find on our website in the chat box, like our Farm to School Institute. And we also have a whole array of resources and guides on our website, including a cookbook that we developed with school nutrition professionals for school nutrition professionals. So how do you meet all the USDA guidelines and the nutrition standards and use local food with kid tested recipes that the kids we're involved in are excited about. And then we also advocate for supportive policy. So there's a Vermont Farm to School and Early Childhood Grants program that your schools are all eligible for, and your early childhood programs. And that's been important for supporting the growth of Farm to School. There's also this year a bill to make universal school meals no charge, breakfast and lunch, to all students. So during the pandemic, we've been doing that, and Vermont is saying, I'm not sure we don't want to go back to the stigma attached to who in the school gets lunch or doesn't, or having parents divulge family income in order to get meals, or, all the things that happen in the lunchroom. And so can we figure out a way to just continue breakfast and lunch as part of the school day and important for success? So what we see in schools that have Farm to School and universal school meals is a decline in nurse visits, better attendance, better focus and academic performance, less bullying. And with some of our early Farm to School research, kids are eating more fruits and vegetables. So when they have those hands-on experiences, or they know a farmer who might come into the classroom, or they might visit a farm, it's translating, as Jed was saying, the importance of relationships. that translates to eating more fruits and vegetables. You know, I'll never forget when I was a parent and we had the farmer come in to Champlain Elementary with the carrots with the tops on, and it looked like a root. And all the kids were wondering, you know, in their mind, they're thinking about the small bags of buff baby carrots, and they had never seen this. And all year they were excited about carrots because they were Thomas's carrots. And they were these beautiful, exotic looking, you know, carrots that excitement translated then to a contract where Burlington School of Foods actually were buying fresh local carrots. So it's really a win-win all around. And the last thing I just want to share is a story that when some of the high school students were testifying in the State House a few years ago to increase farm to school funding, one of the legislators turns to the students and says, okay, really guys, what difference does this make to you? And I know, you know, Jeswin and Jasper are going to answer that, but at the time, one of the students thought for a bit, and he said, it makes me think twice. And he paused. It makes me think about what it took to get the food on my plate and what it does for my body, and I don't waste it. And then he went on to tell the story about when his mother was sick, he did some of the cooking in the house, and he started a community garden in the mobile home park neighborhood where he lived. And that is exactly the transformation that's possible, these lifelong skills and knowledge that we are trying to support with Farm to School. So how can you get involved, all of you? Find out what's happening in your school. You'll be surprised. Ask around. There's usually something happening in one of the classrooms, if not school-wide. And we have a school leaders campaign that can support you on the at the Vermont farmtoschool.org. That's the Farm to School Network page. That'll support you going to speak to the school board or your superintendent or principal about supporting Farm to School. You can reach out to your state legislature about the bills in the State House, or just fill out a supporter card if you like that idea. You can write a letter to the editor in your local paper about why Farm to School is so important, what it means to you, and why it matters. And certainly join the Farm to School Network. That's a great group for sharing ideas and working together, excuse me, in Vermont to make sure Farm to School and early childhood is in every community. And it does include preschools. So there was a question in the chat, and it very much includes preschools. And lastly, you can volunteer with the Vermont Junior Iron Chef Competition. So Blue Cross Blue Shield, as Catherine mentioned, has been a great supporter all along. It's been going for 13 years. We've had almost 5,000 teens, middle school and high school, participate. This year during COVID, we pivoted to a cooking club, but typically on a day in March, it's my favorite day of the year, about 60 or 70 middle school and high school teams of students are competing, preparing a dish using a local ingredient. And usually the students are spending the winter perfecting their recipes, gaining some kitchen skills, trying out new foods, and really working together as a team. You know, some of the schools, it's so popular, they have to have a cook-off competition at the school to pick which teams can go to the state competition. So I'm gonna let the high school students talk a little bit more about that and all sorts of things, but I want to show you a minute video to give you a feel about what Junior Iron Chef really feels like that day or means to the students who are involved. So one more 1 minute video here. There we go. Hang on. All right.
Betsy, it's your background.
Betsy, you're sharing the wrong screen.
Sorry about that. Okay. Luckily, it's only 1 minute. So
It wouldn't be a real Zoom call without some technical difficulties, right?
yeah, it was going so well. It's like, all right, let's see here. There we go.
There you go.
Without Junior Iron Chef,
Without Junior Iron Chef,
I would never have completely fell in love with cooking. I've discovered that I love cooking more than anything. I would have never, ever, ever tried mushrooms.
because of Junior Iron Chef,
I now have better skills to work in the kitchen, to make healthier food decisions. I can cook things that I've never been able to cook before.
know how to be a good leader, know how to cook like different foods.
Have really good friends.
Know how to cook, and I want to do it more. So I decided to do Junior Iron Chef because
I wanted to learn how to cook and compete.
I needed some more excitement in my life.
I wanted to know how to cook vegetarian meals.
To sort of step out of my comfort zone.
I really like cooking, and I wanted to make people happy. This is my dream. This is Junior Iron Chef. I love it.
All right, so that gives you a little bit of a flavor. Jasper, are you going next, or Jasmine?
Yeah.
All right, I'm turning things over to you.
All right. Well, my name is Jasper Kaliba. I'm a senior at Harwood Union High School, and I'm one of the co-leaders of the Farm to School Club. I'll start off with a little bit of background on the club. We started it when I was a freshman, so about 4 years ago, with the help of a teacher named Paul Kramer, who some of you might know in the agriculture industry. The club was originally a group of freshmen who were in the sustainability club and all passionate about sustainability. And we saw the need and the demand for a club like this at Harwood. So we formed it and we started meeting on our own time. And soon after that, we had Paul apply for one of the Vermont Farm to School grants and received $25,000. And from there, that just launched our program. And now we've had up to 30 to 40 members, part of the club at a time. And it's been a really both community engaging and a lot of learning experiences from it. So I'll start by talking a little bit about our first projects, which started off with this thing called Harvest of the Month, which is essentially there's a local Harvest of the Month list that we used, and it highlights a produce that is readily available that month from Vermont farmers. And we tried to incorporate that into our school lunch by first doing taste tests at school lunches with new recipes. So for example, we made sweet potato stuff. We made beet chips, all sorts of different stuff. And we'd have people vote and whether they liked them at lunch, which got a lot of engagement and made more people join the club. And then if a lot of people liked it, we'd put it into the school lunch and kids would actually see that as an option. As well, students from the Farm to School Club would help prepare it in the kitchen and work on sourcing it from the local farm. So it turned into a whole system just with this one project, which was just one of our projects that we've taken on and we still continue to do even throughout COVID. But we have to do it a little differently now. We do it virtually. So we give students the ingredients and they actually now make something at home and send in their creations. And then we vote on them and there's a winner and there's prizes, which has been really cool. We've done a few, we did one with like a cookie contest, and we did one with maple syrup. And so that's what we've been doing more this year. It's been a little harder with COVID, but that's one of our main projects, and one of the things I've taken a lead on. And something else that we've been doing with that $25,000 grant money is we've been investing in our school gardens by volunteering to help build them, and work on, we have like a sustainability kind of part of our school that has a greenhouse, work on outdoor classrooms, and it's becoming a really cool environment. So the Farm to School Club is contributing to that, as well as we really work on getting community partners with farms. So we have a whole outreach division of the club, which is solely on finding farm partners and getting their food in our lunch. So that's just a little bit about what we do. In terms of Junior Iron Chef, we've also participated in that in the past. I participated in it as a sophomore, and it was an amazing experience to see all the other schools, see all the other creations, and plan out the day, months in preparation, and come up with a cool meal. We made dumplings, I believe, from scratch, which was really fun. And also seeing that it's a middle school event too. And I didn't participate in middle school, but my middle school at Crossit Brook in Duxbury, they had a team that would go every year. And they also had a sustainability program, which is why I believe so many people were interested in the Farm to School Club to begin with, is because of that sustainability program where we had a chicken coop, a greenhouse. My 8th grade year, we made composting systems, which got a lot of people excited. And we even had a cafe, or almost like a farmer's market, where we would sell some of the chicken eggs and microgreens and pretty much simulate running a small business in middle school, which is something that transferred over to high school a lot. And so that's, I can give it to Jeswin now to talk a little more about Junior Iron Chef, because I believe you were going to participate, right?
Yeah. So to preface, my name's Jasmine Anthony. I'm a sophomore this year at Harvard Union High School. And so I participated in Junior Iron Chef when I was a freshman. And so this was like right before COVID. So the process of creating a meal, researching it and everything with a group of, other chefs on my school, it was a pretty interesting process that I guess gave me a better appreciation of like using local ingredients to develop that, food creation. We were planning on making this rice noodle dish with a Japanese stir fry and everything. It tasted really good when we did it, but unfortunately COVID came and the competition was canceled for that year. So that was unfortunate. But I do believe that it was a great experience that I participated in. The next question that I'm gonna go to is what value do you see it in your future or Farm to School Club at our school, and why does it matter? I joined Farm to School when I was a freshman, so last year. And when I joined Farm to School at or what Jasper founded when he was a freshman, it had already taken it had a big base at our school. A lot of students participated, and when Jasper said there was the food testing at lunchtime, I even tested I forget what it was, but it was like this vegetarian option. It was all really good, and it was a way to get a lot of students who maybe weren't involved in any clubs or didn't really have any idea of using local ingredients or the importance of it. It kind of give them a little like sneak peek or a taster, and then that might have just convinced them to actually join farm school, and for them to also get educated and get involved in our local schools and communities. And so I believe that it really matters because like we've even expanded now to our middle school at Harvard Union, and we have kids there and like a smaller farm school club where they're getting prepared to then join the high school farm school club. So I think that instilling these values of local foods and supporting our economy, and then also just having knowing the health benefits of eating more locally, really getting students to know about that and learn that is really monumental. Um, Another question, another thing I'd like to answer is what would be your vision for the future with farm to school? Um, we've talked about it in our group. I'm part of the leadership team as well as Jasper. We've talked about getting to like food justice and to because our school we've gone a long ways in you know getting it well known with through our school. We want to now expand that to other schools or just our community in general. And the more people get involved, the better it is for our community. The more money that can be kept in our community, and the more people eating healthier foods and keeping it local. Um, I'll like pass it back to Jasper if he has any other thoughts to share.
Yeah, one thing that I'd like to focus on is our farm to school club follows what Betsy had said earlier with the 3 C's, which one that we really focus on is community. And I feel that above any other club at Harwood, it really has built the community. Another thing that we've put together are these wellness and harvest meals, which are completely local meals, and we sponsor a whole day around it. And we had an assembly, and we had farm to school present at that assembly, and it really got people to understand the impacts of eating healthy. And from right after that, we had probably 5 to 10 more people join the club, and um, we were allowed to put on events like that, which with the funding that we got, which was really amazing, and has been one of the biggest impacts, I'd say. And then another question I'll be answering is what advice I would give for parents, people who work at Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And that would be to, if you're a parent of a kid, tell them to join their farm to school club or form a farm to school club, get involved in some sort of sustainability, because it's so beneficial for not just being healthy, but networking, working with professionals. The amount of professionals I've worked with through this is a lot. I've presented at in front of the state for farm to school bills, which has also been amazing. And also for Blue Cross Blue Shield to fund farm to school as well. And I'm going to pass it off to Jeswin right now because he has something to say.
Yeah. Adding on to the part where Jasper said, what do you like parents or just people to do is that, if you are a parent of a kid, I encourage you to, use local ingredients. So it doesn't just have to happen at the school with a club. If you as a parent take the initiative to cook, healthy meals using local ingredients, that will just then further motivate your children to, it kind of like plants a seed so that will then grow. And as they become adults and they go through the school, they will then have more experience using local ingredients. They'll know the benefits. They'll know how much more helpful it is for their local economies. You can take it back, Jasper.
Yeah. Another thing is, especially in high school, there's been a very big difference in what farm to school is. It's really gotten the people that are passionate about it, because I had those farm to school experiences that Jed had talked about before. Maybe it wasn't a mud kitchen, but I remember going to farms and stuff as an elementary and middle schooler. And for those kids that do have that passion that might be sparked earlier, or maybe it's not, it's a really good place to find that. And yeah, it's just a great way to network and meet new people and learn more about yourself. Is there anything else you want to add, Jeswin?
Well, I mean, it's just more than the food. Food's just one small part of the bigger picture that farm to school brings students and everyone.
Yeah. And what we would love is a more of an interconnected network of farm to school clubs across the state. If every school had the funding that we had, I'm sure that there would be so many amazing programs out there, and maybe even more students from different schools presenting at things like this. And I believe that investing in farm to school is very, very important. Vermont is already a national leader in this, and it's important to keep pushing because it keeps our state very, very healthy when everybody is learning about healthy food in school and they have access to those resources. So maybe 10 years down the line, the people that went to schools that have farm to school programs might be eating more healthy, which could lead to more health benefits later in life, which I think is really cool. There's just so many impacts of farm to school that I could really go on and on. And I think that should about wrap up our segment. I think we've talked about most of our stuff. If anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot us a message in the chat, or I believe there might be a Q&A in a little bit.
Yeah, there's a Q&A at the end, but I do see someone's hand up. Jessica, do you want to go off mute?
Yes, I just wanted to say how impressed I am with these young men here. And I fully agree with them 100% about everything they said about how Vermont stands for that. That's what, so you want to get more towards that. And they think of that fondly because, a lot of people have more than just about healthy eating even, is the responsibility of taking care of a farm, of gardening, of growing things, of being self-sustaining. Those are lessons you can't get everywhere. Those are the most valuable lessons you can get, and you can get them from the farms right in your area. And I know some schools that actually make deals with farms where they bring the kids to the farms and they spend time there, or they do farming programs. This could be so amazing. If you put money into something like this, you can help the farms and the kids, because we could get back to teaching kids more about life skills instead of just to do tricks. You know what I'm saying? Oh, my kid could do this trick and that trick. But what can your kid do if they lose everything? How they're going to eat, how they're going to, and not to mention that the farmers are the people, like the last remaining gentlemen on the planet, that have retained honor and everything else. So it's a great thing to get back into, especially in a state like Vermont. It can be utilized for the camps. People will send their kids to camp here because they want to learn about natural foods and natural eating. People will spend any amount of money on that. So I think it benefits you guys in many ways. And I think these gentlemen, these young gentlemen, are incredible. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear that you guys are moving more towards that, because that would be where the money is, even if you weren't thinking about anything else. The money is in that as well, for the farms and everything else. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, it's just a win-win. And just to add to what you guys were saying, I did talk with Sodexo, is a food service management company that runs the University of Vermont's food service program. And they have a program now to provide 20% of their food as Vermont food, at least. I think they're even above that percent now. And they said it's these kids who are growing up with farm to school, and they are going to UVM and they're asking for fresh and local and different kinds of foods. And so they're responding to that demand. So that's exactly what we want, that, this stays with you for your life, really. All right, any other questions, you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat box. And we just have one more speaker with another inspiring story, and then we can come back to questions and discussion together.
I had one more comment really quick. Just in terms of Blue Cross Blue Shield, in terms of insurance, investing in this, you can see it I see it as a very long-term payoff, because the more you invest in the health of young Vermonters, the healthier we will be later in life, and hopefully the less money you have to pay for our medical insurance and stuff like that. So I see a direct impact through Farm to School, and I'm aware that funding with Blue Cross Blue Shield has gone down over the years, and it would be really great to see more funding, maybe not at the high school level if you can't do that, but I think it's still so beneficial at any level of the school system, whether that be preschoolers, like what Jed was sharing, and developing those transferable skills and that awareness and passion at a young age, or later in high school, where people actually see the real world applications of these things and can start to implement them into their life later on.
Alrighty. All right, let's get back to questions, but turn things over to Sarah.
Hello, I'm Sarah Rosso, and thank you for having me, and thank you for organizing this event. This is really inspiring, and thank you, Jed and Jasper and Jeswin. It's so exciting and inspiring to hear what you guys are up to with your programs. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my program, and let me see if I can screen share. Let's see. Okay, can you see this? Am I doing it right?
Yeah, if you see it.
Betsy, can you see my screen?
Yep, we can see
Okay,
you.
I'm trying to see how to
click present at the top and you'll get a bigger screen. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, so I am the Farm to School coordinator at a small rural public elementary school in the southeastern corner of Vermont called Guilford Central School. We have about 120 students, and it's pre-K through 6th grade. And our Farm to School program encompasses gardening, cooking, nutrition, teaching kids about where our food comes from. And through all this stuff, the kids are learning real world skills, developing 21st century skills. We make sure to connect with the curriculum and things that the teachers are already teaching in the classrooms. We also connect the kids with our community. We're teaching kids about caring for living things, and the Farm to School program connects with our bigger picture nature-based outdoor education that is happening throughout the school as well. We teach kids about composting and recycling, and it's part of a bigger mission at the school to teach kids about stewardship and caretaking and just being good citizens of the world. So I feel like we're doing a lot with limited resources, and I'm pretty excited that my school supports this program. Here's a couple pictures just to give you some snapshots of, kids in the garden. Even during COVID times, we're able to get the kids out there harvesting and taking care of our plants. And then that unmasked picture, of course, is non-COVID times. That was from one of our a time when our 6th graders were getting ready for the Iron Chef competition, making some kale pesto there. So I'll walk you through a couple projects that we've done just to give you some examples of some projects that we have worked on, and I'll keep it short so we have plenty of time for questions. And let's see, okay. So one fun project that we did this year was potato leek soup. So in the fall, some of our younger students, these are pre-K, kindergarten, and 1st grade students here, harvesting potatoes and leeks. And then on the last screen, there was a picture of some kids harvesting the garlic. So they harvest the food, and then we, at some point later in the fall, we turn the food into we cook the food. So there's that wavy chopper that Jed mentioned earlier. It's my favorite cooking tool as well. So the kids peeled and chopped the potatoes and the leeks and actually I did the leeks, but the kids chopped the garlic and added all the other ingredients to this pot, and we cooked it right in their classroom. And then they got to eat this soup for lunch, and a lot of them really loved it. Not everybody loved it, but they all tasted it and they all felt proud and excited about it. So that was one example. So one way that my school has responded to COVID is just getting the kids outside a lot more. So I've been doing less cooking in classrooms this year and more cooking over the fire. So we've been, every class this winter cooked bread on a stick. We had lots of butternut squash from our school garden, so we roasted that over the fire. And you can see some kids there prepping the butternut squash, and then a kid giving us the thumbs up about eating his butternut squash. And of course, everything warm tastes good when you're out in the snow. But it was great to see how excited the kids were about this food from our garden. And I love it when kids get to be part of the whole cycle of planting the food and then harvesting the food and cooking the food and eating the food, and they just love it. And so we definitely see kids eating more vegetables and fruit and asking for seconds and wanting the recipe to take home and stuff like that. So it's pretty satisfying. So this was another fun project. So last March, just before the pandemic hit, these fifth graders tapped some trees and made some maple syrup. They made a pint. It was very small scale, but they were so proud. And then the school shut down. And so their maple syrup sat in the fridge at school for 6 months while school was closed and everyone was remote schooling. And then we came back in September and they asked me about their maple syrup. Now they're sixth graders and they wanted to eat that maple syrup. So we harvested the pumpkins that we had grown last summer, and they made their own pumpkin puree and made pumpkin pancakes using a King Arthur flour recipe, and got to eat those pumpkin pancakes with that maple syrup that they had made 6 months earlier. And they were so excited and so proud. And now those sixth graders made syrup again this year, and they made more of it this year. We bought an outdoor boiler this year because they were just so enthusiastic to make even more of it. So I just love seeing kids so enthusiastic about these projects. And a lot of times the kids that really shine with these outdoor education projects are not necessarily the same kids that shine in the classroom. And so it's wonderful to see kids really in their element, which is not always the classroom, but it really boosts their confidence, and it allows kids to see their peers in a different light. And sometimes they're really impressed by those kids who are really quiet in the classroom, and their peers might be they're just really impressed by them when they see them really shining in the garden or in the forest, and just in a different setting. Sometimes it really is inspiring for different kids. So this was our maple sugaring unit this year. So we took it to another level. It became a school-wide project. Maple sugaring has so many science and math and literacy connections. All the kids got to try new things. Here's some kids using a drill for the first time, hanging the buckets, really taking some ownership of this big project, and then also learning about the culture and history of our region, connecting with local farmers and sugar makers. There's so many opportunities with sugar making, and we're excited to expand that program. And then nutrition education just goes along with it. Nutrition education is just kind of part of every lesson that I do. And it's usually just kind of, it's just kind of on the side, when we're cooking the potato leek soup, the kids are learning about those vegetables, but they don't think of it as a nutrition lesson. But this one was a nutrition lesson. This was with last year's pre-K students. I was teaching them about eating the rainbow. And so over the course of a week, we learned about the benefits of eating red fruits and vegetables, and orange and yellow and green, and then blue and purple on the last day. And so we learned about how important it is to eat different colors of fruits and vegetables, and kind of made it a goal to eat all of the colors that week, and had different snacks each day that were those colors. And then this was our finale project, I brought in these trays of rainbow colored vegetables, and they got a rice cake and some cream cheese or hummus and decorated them and ate them. And they were so excited about it. And they each got a little chart to take home to track throughout the week what colors of fruits and vegetables they were eating, and they were really conscientious about it, and they were telling their parents they needed to buy different colors of fruits and vegetables, and we were sending home fruits and vegetables for them. And now these kids are in kindergarten, and I deliver snack to them every day as part of our fresh fruits and veggies program. And so when I bring a multicolored snack or a snack that's a different color from the day before, it's always fruits and vegetables. These same kids who did this lesson last year get pretty excited, and they remind me about eating the rainbow. So this stuff does stick. And my daughter happens to be in this class, and she, after this lesson, she was asking for raw red cabbage as a snack. And after snack a couple of weeks ago at school, she's been asking for zucchini with ranch dressing. So raw cabbage and zucchini are not necessarily things that I would have even thought of serving as a snack for my daughter at home, but because we had them at school, she asks for them. So those are part of our snack repertoire now. And so in closing, and I've said some of this already, but I just wanted to say what some of the impacts are that I see. And Betsy shared about the statistics, and all the other presenters have already shared about the benefits. And really, I feel like the benefits are just obvious. But what I see every time I work with students is smiling faces, children connected to the land and their food, students learning how to grow and cook healthy food. And Jessica, in your comment, I think you were saying that students these days can be pretty disconnected from where their food comes from, and learning how to grow food and cook food are such vital skills that we all need to know. And I've taught in a lot of different schools over the years, and have definitely had that experience of kids being totally unaware that a French fry comes from potatoes, or that potatoes grow in the ground, or that milk comes from a cow. So I just think it's so important for kids to understand where their food does come from. And with all these programs that we do, we find that kids are so much more willing to try new foods, and that they're eating more fruits and vegetables and asking for fruits and vegetables, and they're taking the lessons home and teaching their families about the importance of eating fruits and vegetables. And I also send recipe kits home, and families are cooking together, and they're just, the feedback I get is just so positive. And like I said earlier, different students excel in different settings. So it's great to get kids out of the classroom and into the garden or into the woods or into the cafeteria where they're making sauerkraut. Here are these kids, they made this sauerkraut from purple cabbage in the school garden, and look how happy they are to eat it. I've never seen kids so excited about sauerkraut. And they're so happy. They're enjoying time outdoors. They're working together. They're accomplishing goals. They're working cooperatively. And there's just so much joy in these projects that I get to do with students. So I just feel so lucky that I get to do this. And I'm gonna turn it back over to Betsy to lead us in questions and answers. And I was not looking at the chat during that. I don't know if there are questions there, but I'll take a look, but I'll let you take it over, Betsy.
Thank you, Sarah. Boy, that's an amazing program, and sharing your excitement is fantastic. There was a little bit of chat about, especially in Vermont, and, we have an agricultural economy. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more maybe about the connection with farmers and what you're seeing there in Guilford. And then please, anybody else, you can raise your hand in Zoom or just type a question in the chat for any of us here today.
That's such a great, and I talked a lot about the school gardens, but not very much about our connections with farmers, which is a really vital part of the program, of course. So Guilford used to be a primarily agricultural town, and unfortunately has shifted away from that. We only have a handful of farms left, but we do really make an effort to connect with those farmers and vice versa. There's one farm in particular, the Franklin farm, that's a dairy farm, and they they give us a really good deal on ground beef for our cafeteria. So when the kids eat tacos and shepherd's pie and chili in the cafeteria, it's always made with this locally raised grass-fed beef. So that's one great connection that we have. And there's a couple of vegetable farmers that we are connected with. And it's always tricky because farmers are really busy. And we're working on getting a farmer onto our farm to school committee to be more part of the conversation. And I think one of our challenges is that our cafeteria is not run by the school. It's run by Cafe Services, which is the outside business that we contract with. And so our purchasing is a little tricky. And so it's a little difficult to purchase directly from farmers. But if I purchase it and give it to our chef, he'll cook it. So that's one way that we work around it. And then also Cafe Services is committed to using local food for to at least cook the harvest of the month once a month. And Food Connects is another great resource. So it's based in Brattleboro, and I think Connor might be here if we want to give him a chance to explain what Food Connects is. But it's a regional group that has a farm to school component and also has a food distribution hub that buys food from local farmers and distributes it. So that makes it a lot easier for cafeterias to buy from the food hub instead of buying directly from farmers. So that is one of those win-win situations that really benefits everybody. So having a hub like that, I think, is one really helpful way to get local food into the cafeteria. So it's something we're working on. It's something that I'm trying to strengthen, and unfortunately, there's not that many farms in our town, but we are trying to strengthen our connections with them.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sure.
Yeah, there is a bill we've been advocating for in the State House it's called a local purchasing incentive bill. So it would give schools who purchase a certain percentage of local food, 15%, 20, 25%, more reimbursement from the state for their meal program. So it just gives them that little boost to justify, maybe local beef is a little bit more, maybe certainly more than commodity beef from away, maybe other things might be a little bit more, but with a little bit higher reimbursement, then schools have the justification to do that. And we're also hoping that it just builds demand so that the Food Connects Food Hub and Green Mountain Farm Direct and some of the other food hubs who are already set up to deliver food from local farms, that it would just strengthen that supply chain. So that's another opportunity that would, I think, help expand farm to school as well.
Betsy, would that apply to, sorry, someone else. Would that apply to schools that work with someone like Cafe Services?
Yeah, that's it. Whether you're independently operated or food service management company, it's a reimbursement per plate for the kids. So that's how that's calculated. Yeah, so go to vermontfarmtoschool.org and you can weigh in on that, sign a supporter card if you like that idea.
So Betsy, this is Megan. I think I'm off mute. So I have a question that we collected a couple questions prior to this session. So I just wanted to throw one out, which was submitted, which is how is Vermont Feed expanding the program to be inclusive of New American students? Being in Burlington, we have the New American Gardens, and there's a lot of these families involved. And so how is that happening in terms of engagement with feed programming? And are those cultures influencing the food being created or the meals that maybe are getting into the school menus?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's happening in a lot of ways at different levels. So there's a great project, there's a lot of great projects, but one that's brought to mind that I think can serve as a model is there's a teacher at Champlain Elementary that was looking at better connecting to indigenous foods, indigenous history on the land that the school was on, the Abenaki. And they have done a number of projects where the students have really gone deep in understanding that connection, and then they've changed the garden to get seeds that there are a number of members of the Abenaki tribe who have been collecting some of the seeds and to be planting those in the garden. And so the kids are learning and then also, experiencing and growing that food. And they've developed within the classroom then a cookbook that reflects all, not just indigenous foods, but all the different traditions and backgrounds of the students with the various community partnerships. I mean, I think that's especially, Megan, where the community partners are so important. So they've connected with the associations of Africans living in Vermont. They've made connections with Clemens Family Farm. Some of you know that organization. And they developed a cookbook, and they're hoping next year with funding to then be able to have the students cook in the classroom, cook the recipes, fine tune them, and publish that cookbook. And they're looking at Champlain, but they really are hoping this becomes a template for the whole district, so that regardless of what cultures or backgrounds your students have, it's a model for the teachers to be working with the students on bringing that in. And food is, again, this amazing way to have these conversations and be looking at all the different traditions, but also what you have in common. And, across all of that. So that's a project I'm aware of. I know that the school food service has also continually changed the menu to respond in terms of making sure they weren't serving food that wasn't going to work culturally. I know Winooski also has a very diverse student body, and they've been paying attention to the needs of the students. And I've seen great programs. I mean, we really, really promote, similar to what Jasper and Jeswin have been talking about with farm to school clubs, promoting student input. Like, what are the students wanting? What is their feedback on the school meal program? How do you incorporate and have that dialogue so that you can evolve what you're serving that better reflects the student body and their interests and needs, and also the families that make up your school community. So that's been important. What I'm looking forward to is really paying attention with more BIPOC growers and producers, and and I think the food hubs might play a good role with this, because they can aggregate product from a lot of small places and bring it together for school. But how do we increase and pay attention to where we're getting the food from to support, more community involvement in growing and things like that. So those are a few. The students at Sustainability Academy this year, they weren't able, to cook with and eat the food out of the garden in the same way. So they put together some recipes that reflect the culture of the student body, and was able to distribute some of the food from their garden to families directly. And that was all a student-driven project. So, those are just a few ways that answers your question, Megan, to really respond. Pay attention to who's in your school community, have those conversations, elevate the student voice, and I think you can strengthen that.
That's great. Thank you. I don't know if I'm causing that feedback. Sorry, but there is someone has their hand up. I think Jessica Lee, do you have a?
Yes. I just wanted to say one other thing. You were before, when you were talking about how what they decide about the funding and stuff like that, meaning the local towns that occasionally they'll have sort of contracts saying how much food they'll buy from the farmers in town. Why can't the state tell them it's mandatory? There's other things the state decides on and tells them they have to do. Why can't they make it so that the schools in the state have to buy the local food? Because you know it's better. You know Vermont lives up to a better standard, and the farms need as much help as the education system.
Yeah, thanks for your question. You know, I would say that the desire is really there. If you talk to the school food directors, the desire is there. I think they're feeling pinched financially, and sometimes they inherit a kitchen that's built to be a warming oven for processed food. So we're trying to rebuild our kitchens. We're trying to train, and Feed has, you know, does a lot of training with School Nutrition Association Vermont. So cooking from scratch and how to handle local product, and the recipe book was part of that. But I do think in terms of investing, you know, two things. You know, we try to do it through incentives first. And so having farm to school grants, and then I think this local purchasing incentive, which changes the reimbursement formula, that I think really would accomplish the same thing, where schools would, it would be worth that to them to buy more from Vermont. And if they get 25 cents more a lunch, yeah, that would help.
I just wanted to say that because it adds value to their education. They're trying to get people to come here. Most of the times when I was growing up and I would say I wanted to move to Vermont, people would say, well, what about the schools? What about the schools? If you have things that add value to the education, because it's not like everybody's not paying enough, right? They're overpaying and they're not getting what they are paying for. So if you add things to the schools like this, people, because that's the whole wave of the world has gone there, the natural foods, the this and that. You can really market that and you can use it for money. You'll make a lot more money than you are now. So I don't understand why the state is deciding, it's almost like, not that they don't, but they're looking almost in the wrong direction all the time. You know, a lot of the funds that are coming in when they're delegating what's going where, they're still putting most of it into areas where they shouldn't invest and not putting enough into locals. Because the reason why I'm saying that is because of the investment. They'd make so much more money if they just look within themselves, but they just keep missing it.
Thanks.
Anyway, but it's just, the idea is, they might be saying, oh, we only have this amount of money, but then who do we go to talk to tell them that you need more in that department, Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your feedback. I think that actually, Betsy, you shared some things in the beginning and they may be in the chat, and we can share information later about places to go to sort of express your feelings to the state government about what can be done in these areas. And I'm aware that we're just 3 minutes left for the program. So I wanted to sort of throw out one last question for all of the speakers. Is there anyone with sort of one burning piece of advice or nugget of information? It's all been so powerful and so good. And I feel blessed that we got to hear from Jasper and Jeswin and Jed earlier. Anything that you all want to have this moment to share? I know it's hard. I just opened up to a whole crowd of people, and who's going to speak first?
I don't have anything to share, but thank you so much for having me. This was a great experience, and I'm glad I got to see other people's farm to school programs as well, because it's nice to know that other schools are doing stuff like we are.
Thank you. It was great hearing from you. I see Sarah's picture going on now. Well, my family was personally impacted by these programs. My kids went to Sustainability Academy, and their experience in the early days has affected their entire lives now. They're young adults who really know about food and know about the connectedness and the impact on their own health in a really natural sort of integrated way. And so I really give you all doing this work the credit for instilling that. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And thank you so much for your time. We are recording this session, which I think I neglected to mention in the beginning. So we're going to send this out to everyone who registered, and you all can also share that with others. So a big thanks to all the speakers, Betsy, Jed, Jeswin, Jasper, Sarah. Much appreciated.
Another thing that you
Yeah.
might be able to do is right now, I think Betsy mentioned this earlier, Vermont is currently in the work of trying to pass a bill for farm to school. So I believe its original amount was over $2 million over 4 years to farm to school programs like mine. So maybe try to lobby Congress or do anything to impact your politicians around you, because it's in their hands partially now. So yeah, that's about it.
Well, you are inspiring, and I expect to see you all in the future leading this work, I'm sure.
Exactly. They're much, they're the ones that the legislators need to hear from, right? But thank you, Catherine and Megan and Jessica and all for having us. Really, it's so inspiring. And if I were to offer any piece of advice, you know, start small where your energy is. It doesn't, you know, you don't get to a program like Guilford's or Harvard Union, you know, right away, but you start to build and you can see the enthusiasm, and you could hear from Jasper and Jeswin how, you know, more kids join in. So it's really taking that first step. So thanks again to everyone.
Thank you all.